Welcome to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glocal Voices. My name is Taiwo Afolabi, I'm your host. We're live and direct at IDIERI 2025 at the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver in Canada. And we're taking the time to speak to a vast of researchers who have come together for the IDIERI 2025 conference in Vancouver. I want to shout out to those behind the scene, Gabriel, Walter, Shola, and Caleb, for taking the time to work on this. Really appreciating the opportunity to speak to Marissa Barnathan today from Rockford University. And I'm just going to ask Marissa to quickly position and introduce herself, and after that we're going to dive into Marissa's research around socially conscious musicals. Over to you, Marissa.
Great, thank you so much. This is so lovely. My first time being at an IDIERI conference. I've been in Vancouver a few times, which I'll talk about why, but my first time at this conference, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great.
So I'm currently an assistant professor of theater at Rockford University, which is an hour and a half outside of Chicago in Illinois, just south of Wisconsin, if you know where Milwaukee is, or Madison, Wisconsin. We're south of there and west of Chicago. It's a very small university. I did my graduate degree at Arizona State University, which is one of the largest universities in the US, to go to a small liberal arts college. We have about 1,200 students. So just to situate, much smaller. I wanted to give you a little bit of my journey. This conference is about our roots and routes. So some of my roots, I'm from Philadelphia originally. I then went to study theater in St. Louis, Missouri for my undergrad. And then I worked as a theater artist for many years back in Philadelphia. And in 2016, I worked for the Hillary campaign. Hillary Clinton, obviously, didn't go well, but it helped me find my voice as an activist. And then, first after that was planned a protest for affordable healthcare, and kind of got excited about what it means to be an activist. So then in 2018, after having worked as an actor and a teaching artist in Philadelphia, I was doing a lot of musical theater, which is what I mostly specialize in. I was loving the performing and, creating theater, but I felt like something was missing. And then I wondered, okay, well, I'm enjoying all this activism. Could I do that? So I took a break from theater and I worked as a political organizer very briefly, just in 2018 during the midterm elections, and thought, okay, maybe that's it. And then I found a lot of toxicity, unfortunately, in that world. And so then I had another pause moment. I said, okay, could I put these things together in some way? And so then in 2019, I came to Vancouver for the first time to study with David Diamond at Theatre for Living. Yeah. And I was just, it shook my world in such a wonderful way. And so then I said, okay, it was an aha moment of I can put these things together. So then I pivoted more to directing, because I also wanted to have more agency over the types of projects I was creating and working on. I still love acting and performing, it's my core, but directing is more exciting to me now. So I pivoted towards directing, and then that's when I went back to grad school. So I got my MFA in directing at Arizona State University, as I mentioned, and then came back to Vancouver again in 2022 and did the second level of Theatre for Living training with David. Loved that. And then I was at this point where I knew that I would be graduating from grad school and wanted to pursue being a professor. And I have all this musical theater experience. I've taught dance at the college level. So I was trying to figure out, okay, am I gonna then combine my Theatre of the Oppressed and Theatre for Living work with musicals? I chatted with David. I said, okay, I'm not gonna have people, improvise singing and dancing on stage like you do in a forum theater play. How can I, make my own, a space that I felt I could bring all of my passions together. Mm-hmm. So while I still do some Theatre of the Oppressed work, I've worked as a joker, and I've taken some of the civic engagement, community engagement threads from Theatre of the Oppressed and worked on some projects. One, the Enough Plays to End Gun Violence, which I'm still involved with. the area that I feel most passionate about is what you started with, socially conscious musicals. I did not create this term. There are other theater artists using that socially conscious piece, but I've put it together, socially conscious musicals, which I define as musicals that are dealing with some social or political or socio-political issue. Usually social justice, but that could, depending on the musical, you could say, is it more a social issue or social justice? So that's where I'm at now.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
we're the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre.
Which is why it was exciting to me.
But it's really fascinating though. It's your background in organizing and all of those things, and how that has come together full circle into bringing all that experience into musicals. I know that your research is our researchers, they are always in development. But what are the key highlights that you think you want to share with us based on your research on socially conscious music?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Yes, so in the beginning of grad school, I was starting with a kind of broader question about, can musicals increase civic engagement in both the performers or creators and the audience? Then as I started effectively a thesis project, we called it an applied project because I was getting an MFA as opposed to a PhD. I wanted to center on a specific piece. So I directed and choreographed Miss You Like Hell, which is a musical. It didn't make it to Broadway, but it was at the Public Theater in New York in 2018. It's by Chiara Alegria Hudes, who also wrote the book for In the Heights and Water by the Spoonful, great Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. So she and a queer composer named Erin McKeown, together they made Miss You Like Hell. And it's about an undocumented Mexican-American woman who is trying to get her legal citizenship status, also while repairing her fractured relationship with her daughter. So this was the piece that I did as my applied project, and the research I did around it, essentially, there were many pieces to it, but I was focused on, would the experience of watching the musical make audience members more empathetic or sympathetic to the experience of undocumented immigrants or immigrants in general. And I am pleased to say that the research showed that it did change their opinion for the better, which was really exciting. So I don't have all the specifics with me today of the data, but roughly of the, I had folks take a pre-show and post-show survey, had the exact same questions on it. It was about 6 statements, both including positive and negative statements around attitudes towards immigrants and undocumented immigrants, and about 30% of the folks who responded, I think I had maybe 50 respondents who responded to both, about 30% of those moved up kind of one tick.
After the show.
That's right, of their sympathy or empathy towards undocumented and immigrants. Now, what we did also see is that of the people who were seeing the show, they started out kind of, you could say, pro-immigrant, but then it deepened their sympathy or empathy. So for me, what's exciting about that is, you don't always know who's gonna come to your musical, to your play, and they might already be more progressive. I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to move people, from 0 to 60. But if what I'm interested in, and I'm sure some of the folks at your center are also interested in, how are we engaging people further, right? So if they already have the attitudes that are pro-immigrant, by then seeing this story, are they more willing to call their senator, or
action?
Exactly, and that's what I'm really most interested in as an activist, is action.
That's right.
And so, but I also love musical theater, I love storytelling, choreography, and so if I'm able to move people a bit with my art, that's what's most exciting.
It's interesting because we're talking about musicals here. In Canada, I don't know about the US, musicals is a big thing.
I skipped a piece.
School.
I skipped a piece of the psychology behind.
Go for it.
But yeah, you go. Yeah. Why the musical piece. Yeah.
Why the musical piece?
Yeah.
Because in Canada, the musicals in high school, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
And if the kind of research that you're doing, really concentrating and focusing on that kind of generation and that age group, I think it's really fascinating. So just wanted to know, maybe speak more to that in terms of more. So
I skipped that piece because I didn't know how much time we would have. Yeah, so in my undergrad, I studied drama and psychology. And so part of my research was also looking at the psychology of music and dance. And so and I previously had thought of doing an experiment where I took a non-musical play about immigration and put it side by side with the musical about immigration and having two different control groups, but didn't do that. So anyway, back to what you're saying, the piece that's interesting to me is how do we engage with text, let's say a non-musical play, and essentially I argue that it's mostly engaging with us through our thoughts. Music and dance, there's lots of studies that have shown that watching dance, listening to music, or a combination, taps into our emotions. And so cognitive behavioral therapy, the main concept is actions, emotions, thoughts. So what I was positing in this research is if we tapped into our thoughts through text and we tap into our emotions through music and dance, are we more likely to change our actions? So I'm still investigating that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap up here, I'm going to ask you this question again. Your research is bulging and developing and all that. What's the future of it?
Yes, so I just directed and choreographed the prom at Rockford University, which is about LGBTQ rights. And so I did pre-show and post-show surveys just this past April. I have about 70 respondents, so this summer I will be analyzing that data to see if that musical had an impact on people's attitudes towards LGBTQ rights and LGBTQ individuals.
Interesting. Are you thinking of taking this to high school at all, or out, to school settings?
Potentially. I know as an early researcher, I know there are different hurdles you have to go through for working with people under 18.
That's right.
I would definitely be curious to do that. I just haven't yet. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We've been talking to Professor Marissa Barnathan from Rockford University.
That's right.
I'm stumbling on the pronunciation, Rockford University. And Marissa's work is really focusing on socially conscious musicals and how that can help us to be better activists and really speaking to really creating, looking at some of these performances in a different way and really be able to engage with the political realities we find ourselves. Thank you so much for joining Glocal Voices, and thank you so much for watching. This is Taiwo Afolabi, hosting Glocal Voices, and of course we're live here at IDIERI 2025. Sign up.
You have been listening to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina. For more details about the center, visit www.cset.ca.